Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast, and welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
What is the most inexplicable and creepy thing that you have ever witnessed in person?
I grew up in the sticks. No real cities or even decent towns anywhere close, so the local pastime for teenagers was just to get out and ride around looking for trouble, mudding in trucks, etc. One night, me, my best friend, and our dates were out in his truck riding trails and stuff. We were up in an area he'd heard about that supposedly had an old abandoned mining camp, like a little ghost town out in the middle of the woods. We found it. It was creepy and cool as hell. A few little ramshackle houses, a couple of smallish buildings, and what looked like it must have been an old general store. Now I can't stress this part enough. This shit looked old by American standards, like it might have all been built back in the 1800s. The construction was all wood and stone, like those walls you see made of random-sized rocks. Most of it was all overgrown and falling in, but we got out and looked around to see if we could find anything cool. My buddy's date was scared as shit, and within minutes of us starting to explore, she was wanting to leave. She kept saying that she felt like we shouldn't be there, that something wanted us to leave, but we being red-blooded teenage boys just poked fun at her for being scared. Then the howling started. We have coyotes, and what we heard at first sounded like them yipping at the moon, but it was a lot of them, and it sounded pretty close. Both of us had guns, because you don't go in the woods without them, and my buddy fired off a round to try to scatter them and to make the girls feel less scared. All the yipping stopped, but then way closer to us, we heard this deep ground-trembling growl, so loud and so deep you could feel it in your own chest. And then it howled, all deep and throaty and musical, exactly like you'd expect to hear from a wolf, only there was this quality to it that made me think of a human voice. We were all good and creeped out by that point, so we got back in the truck to leave. On our way back out, we noticed something we'd missed on our way in. Off on our left, back in the trees, was an old graveyard, so old that the forest had basically reclaimed it. Just crude gravestones sticking up amongst the undergrowth. My date shot her hand up to point at something, so carelessly scared she actually smacked me in the head in the act of just pointing. "Look at that dog!" I saw it then. Some of the tombstones had to be around 3 feet tall, especially the stone cross this thing was behind, but it was head and shoulders above it. It was so big that I thought it was a bear for a second, but I was pretty sure it had a tail. Then it did something that made me again think it was a bear for a second. It stood up. It was huge, easily 7 feet, I'd say. This all took place in the course of seconds. The truck's lights weren't directly on it, and no way in hell was I rolling down the window to try to spotlight it. But then it did something no bear really even can do. It came running and leaping toward the trail. I tell my buddy to go, and then we're hauling all the ass you can haul down a washed-out dirt trail in the woods. This thing's faster than us. We can get up to around 30 miles per hour at little stretches, but it's keeping pace. It's always behind us, just close enough that we can sort of make it out in the dim, red glow of the taillights. It's like it will get close enough to be seen, then just stop and stand there. This goes on for about 10 minutes of pure terror, then it's just gone. When we finally got back to my buddy's house, I mentioned that as scary as it all was, it didn't seem like it wanted to hurt us, just scare us off. That's when my buddy's girl said this. "Remember when I said something wanted us to leave?"
Back in '08, I was into road cycling and would ride 40-ish miles 3 to 4 times a week in the middle of the night from about 2 to 4 a.m. It was dark as hell, but I had a few good flashlights mounted on my bike, and my route was through a pretty rural area, so not much traffic. Even so, when you ride at night, you become familiar with every single streetlight, ridge, bump, or pothole in the road because not anticipating one could mean taking a spill or getting a flat, which no one wants to do in the middle of the night. One particular night, about an hour into my ride on my usual route, I came around a bend, went up a small hill, and as I was coming down the hill, I noticed a bright light in the distance that I didn't recognize. It was an orange, high-pressure sodium street lamp, which was odd because not only had I never seen this street lamp before, all of the other street lamps on this road, and there weren't many, were white. Not only was the color different, there are no houses at all in this area, just fields and farmland, and all of the other lights on the road were near a house. Seemed odd to me that the city would do this, but I didn't think much of it and continued my ride. As I got closer to the street lamp, I noticed something was on the road, some kind of animal. I slowed down a bit, but wasn't too worried since the only thing around here are usually deer. But as I continued to approach it, I realized it was a huge white dog. I couldn't make out its exact breed since I was too far away, but it looked similar to an English bulldog. It was sitting on its hind legs directly in the center of the road, right under this new street lamp, facing right at me. It hadn't moved an inch since I noticed it, and getting a little freaked out, I slowed down, stopped, and dismounted my bike. Still, it was stoic, completely motionless, but staring right at me, and I started to get the feeling that this dog was not going to let me pass. I was getting more and more of an eerie feeling from this whole situation. So I turned my bike around, got back on, and rode back the way I came, never taking my eyes off of the dog until I was on my bike and moving. I didn't take that route again for a while, but the next time I did, I came up over the hill and expected to see the same light, wary of the dog that might be there. Instead of seeing the light, there was nothing. It was pitch black. There was no dog, no street lamp, no pole, nothing. Everything I had encountered the other night was just gone. I still don't know what to make of it, but it made me believe that there are things out there that we don't understand, things that may interfere in our lives at any given point, for whatever reason they might have.
I was out on our standard yearly weekend trip with the Boy Scouts. That year, on the last night, they had prepared something special, some kind of tunnel of horror thing along one of the more stable and visible paths in the woods. The idea was that some of the adults would wait at the end of it, some would stay back, and the children would all go one by one along the path and get spooked a bit. They hung up some lights so you wouldn't get lost, and put up some scares. Like there was a big spooky spider hanging from a tree. At one point, one of them was dressed up as a witch or some shit and would jump out of a bush. Harmless child scare stuff. I think I was about halfway through when I guess I felt something to my left. So I turned left, and way in the distance, I think 100 meters away in the forest, stood a man made out of light. I didn't think much of it at first. I thought it was one of the adults dressed up in some weird suit to scare us. But A, I wondered why he would be so far away from the path, and B, the light looked too seamless to be some suit. So I stood there and watched as that man walked through the woods, pretty much perpendicular to the path I was on. Then he suddenly stopped, and I could 100% feel as he turned his head towards me and looked at me. I was frozen in terror. It was like a wave of cold washed over my body. And then the fucker started running towards me. It was weird. It felt like he was going extremely fast, but he still didn't manage to cover the relatively small 100-meter distance to me before I got the feeling back in my body and started running as fast as I could along the path. There were some more scares set up, but I of course ignored them all and kept running. I could still feel him follow me for a couple of moments, and then that feeling slowly started to fade away, but I kept running until I was at the end. I was about to tell the adults what I had seen, but I needed to catch my breath for a second, and while I did so, I tried to rationalize what I had seen. Maybe out of fear, maybe out of rational thinking, I thought that, hey, it probably was just one of the adults who put a bit more of an effort into scaring us. So I went up to them and I was like, hey, good job. The spider and witch weren't that scary, but the lightning man really got me. And I remember them looking really confused, and they started asking me questions about that lightning man. So I elaborated, and the look of confusion on their faces went away, and they started to look really concerned. One of them went to make a phone call, and we all went back to our campsite, where I noticed that at least one adult was always on watch throughout the night, looking over our tents. That's pretty much it. I never spoke of it to any of the other children, and I've never been back in any sort of forest since. I told the story a couple of times in my life, but of course, most people just tell me that I imagined things.
I was traveling in Cambodia with my girlfriend, and there was this street busker doing magic tricks with cigarettes. It was pretty entertaining, and we were watching because we had just gotten some food and drinks and were walking between some vendors in a market. He would take the cigarette and light it, and then give it to someone and tell them to take a puff. But right before the person could take a puff, he would snap his fingers near the cigarette and it would completely stop burning. That was pretty nuts, and he tried to get me to take the cigarette. I hate being the center of attention though, and already felt awkward, so I just kinda waved it off, and me and my girlfriend awkwardly walked away. We walked maybe 20 yards down the market strip, and we went to turn into another side street, and then a guy walked right past us while staring right at me and waving his finger in that sort of, "Oh no you don't" kind of way. I was pretty shook because I swore it was the exact same busker. It was like he teleported right in front of us. Same clothes, same face, same weird busker and magician accessories. Then he pretty much disappeared into the crowd back on the main market street. I kind of walked back, because the side street had nothing on it, and we looked back down the market street, and the area where the first busker was didn't have nearly as many people. But the busker was sitting in the same spot and just staring right at me from that same fucking spot, and he started laughing. I was seriously perplexed, and my girlfriend was actually feeling upset at this point, so I said it must just be a twin, or we are drunk or something. Still don't know what happened.
Be driving to my parents' house from another state some years back. Nighttime around 10 p.m. Get off the highway to stop for gas. After filling up, get back out on the road. Accidentally miss the turn back onto the highway and end up going down some dirt road through a bunch of trees. The path is long as shit. Can barely see anything. Eventually end up at the weirdest thing I've ever seen. There's some kind of trailer and a couple of pickup trucks. There's a bonfire going. A bunch of guys wearing these weird-looking get-ups like something from the Renaissance period or something. Hard to describe. And some weird-looking masks. They're all sort of dancing around the fire with torches in their hands. One of them is on top of the trailer doing what appeared to be filming on a camera. Points at me. Starts to get off the trailer. Others start coming towards me. I start to attempt to turn my car around. Can barely maneuver this shit with such little room and on a crappy dirt path. They're probably 5 feet away from my car. Finally managed to turn around completely. Fly the fuck out of there. Nearly shat myself that night.
What the fuck? Sounds like some sort of ritual. For some reason, I feel like it was some occult order doing their thing in the middle of the woods. Do you have any more details on what they were wearing?
Shit if I know, mate. It had to be some kind of ritual. As for how they were dressed, I didn't get the best glimpse cause like I said it was nighttime and the only light was the flames. But the best I can describe it was like some kind of robes. Like maybe something out of a Shakespeare play. They sure as shit weren't clan members.
Be a security guard, working at a factory overnight. They don't keep the place running on weekends, so need security to keep out dumb teenagers and drugged out bums. Be watching House of Cards on my phone. Watch beeps. Time to do my hourly sweep. Grab my flashlight and make the rounds. The factory is a steel house, mainly to make parts for Jap cars. They melt steel down into these bars the size of telephone poles and store them for later use. Walking by this huge shelf where they keep said steel bars, all of a sudden I hear, clear as day, someone whisper, "Stop." I shine my flashlight around. Don't see anything. Take another step. I said, "Stop." Get my shoulder grabbed from behind. Blood runs cold as ice. I hear creaking. All of a sudden, one of these huge steel bars comes crashing down on the concrete floor. It's so fucking loud. It misses me by less than a foot. I trip backwards, fall flat on my ass, shine the flashlight around. Don't see anything. The place is pretty open. Sit there and stare at this steel bar that would have crushed me. Swallow, shake it off, and walk back to my little office to call my boss and tell him what happened. Leave out the part where my ass was saved by a ghost. I still think about it often.
Be me just 2 years ago. Live in a city. Mountains surround us. It's Chihuahua, Mexico. Live near a park. Go take walks often to exercise and think about life. Not 1 hour after the sun goes down, I see one bright red light in the sky. Never believed in UFOs, so dismiss it as an airplane and keep walking. Look up again. This time there's another red light, and then another. Stare at them for a while. Notice that they seem to be moving together, spinning in circles around some invisible object, forming a triangle. They're not just spinning, but also bobbing up and down in the air as if they're floating. Notice they're actually some distance away behind the mountains at the horizon. If it was one object, it was easily gigantic. I look around me. I'm not the only guy at the park, but no one else seems to notice this. And I don't want to look like a weirdo for pointing it out. Just keep walking and go home, but I keep stopping to look at the lights and they're still there. I always thought UFO sightings happened in the countryside. But there I was surrounded by people, and no one else seemed to see this. The lights fade out slowly eventually. And I have believed in UFOs ever since.
3 things that happened in the same bedroom right when I laid down to go to sleep. 1. I closed my eyes and felt hands start opening my mouth like I was at the dentist. I could taste the rubber gloves as they poked around my mouth. I could feel my teeth wiggling as they were grabbed one by pliers and pulled. But there was no pain, just the sensation of motion. It even caused my head to move around like invisible hands were working on my teeth. I was completely conscious. Another time I closed my eyes to go to sleep, and immediately I saw the face of what I can only describe as a humanoid alien. It looked like a middle-aged woman, except her eyes were like solid blue light. Her skin was an opaque grayish flesh tone and wrinkled, but not because of age. That was just the texture of that creature's skin. I had the feeling I knew her, but it still surprised me, and it was like she was standing right in front of me, even though I was laying in bed. Another time I laid down, closed my eyes, and what felt like a petite woman got into bed with me. and started cuddling really intensely. I could feel her weight and movement and everything. It went away when I opened my eyes. I only lived in that house for a year. Nothing like that has happened to me before or since. Some other strange things happened there. The previous owners of the house were the first owners of the house since it was built. I know because they were related to me, and I remember when it was being built.
My younger brother, some of his friends, and I went to an old graveyard. It was pretty much forsaken at this point, behind a church in the middle of the night just to see what happened. We definitely got a picture of what looked like a smiling infant crawling out of its own grave. I wish so badly I still had it because it's uncanny. The place was flooded with the orb phenomenon, which didn't seem to be explained by anything else around. There was no wind that night, no dust floating about. We were very still, quiet, and respectful, just because it's a resting place. I eventually saw with my own eyes what looked like a dim white ball of light that was going in leisurely circles around a single tree some 50 feet away from us. Got the distinct feeling it was a little girl playfully skipping, but I didn't say anything. Instead, I tapped my brother on the shoulder and asked if he saw what I was seeing. He says, "The little girl?" Yeah. It was a super cool experience to have. Nothing big and spooky happened, but eventually we felt like we weren't welcome anymore and left. My brother has never been in tune to that kind of stuff, so to speak, which is what made it so shocking when he clearly stated what I was seeing. I sometimes wonder if he saw the dim ball around the tree, or the actual girl. Either way, really glad it all happened.
Not really scary, but I've always been able to move around during sleep paralysis, which kinda fucks up the way I see reality sometimes, since I can't tell what is real and what's not, if the paralysis is subtle enough. Laying on my side trying to sleep. Cat presses against my stomach and loafs up. Voices and whispers come from every direction. Hands and arms start reaching out from under me, pulling me into my mattress. Don't feel scared, but instinctively grab onto the cat, which isn't bothered at all. Limbs keep trying to pull me, but somehow holding onto the cat stops them from actually taking me. Cat starts purring, feel it vibrate through my entire body. Limbs disappear. Cat yawns and stretches, walking away. Get up now that it's over. I don't have a cat. Sleeping pretty soundly, having a really odd dream. Wake up and I'm face to face with a shadow staring straight at me. The white dots in its eyes seeming to align with mine. Somehow I can tell it has a female form, despite being in the dark. Attempt to move slowly but realize it. She has her hand over mine, as if holding it. Adjust my position as she follows my movements with her silent, peering gaze. Fall asleep without realizing. The rest of my family have experienced paranormal events. I only have my sleep paralysis shenanigans and a lot more synchronicities. One of my sleep paralysis experiences that made me question reality for a bit. Wake up feeling dehydrated. Get some water but feel like I'm floating as I walk. Drink water and feel actually pretty good now, if a little fogged up. Realize my mother is in the room she usually stays in when she visits. Walk in, but she's just standing there unnaturally, moving a powered-off vacuum back and forth. Realize I might be dreaming since I feel no fear or discomfort, but feel confused because I'm not feeling lucid. Walk towards her, but it's something else that looks vaguely humanoid wearing a wig. I somehow know its clothes are just skin. It's just smiling while tracking my movements with its eyes, still moving the vacuum. Try to power the vacuum on, but it's not plugged in. Tell it to plug it in next time, and it smiles even wider as I walk out. Walk outside to see my yard. Some stereotypical demon-looking thing is building walls around my property. Ask it what it's doing, and it just says, "It's an egg." Walk back inside, looking around to see if I can spot anything else that's weird. Get fucking spooked by another one of those things just sitting behind a stepladder. Tell it to put that shit back where it belongs. Thing smiles wide and stands up, walks away with the stepladder in hand. Realize I have a perfect opportunity. Walk into my room to see if I'm having a trippy out-of-body experience. Silhouette of myself is just sitting in bed. Can only see static defining my form. It seems to look up at me and lays down. Feel the weight of sleep paralysis and the release all at once as everything goes black. Wake up feeling dehydrated. I know it can easily be credited as a dream, but it was very similar to other sleep paralysis events I had. I'm not even sure if it is sleep paralysis. I just assumed it was since it's been that way since I was a kid.
I used to watch Ghost Adventures a lot growing up. They had 2 locations near me, one in Las Vegas where I live, and one in Goldfield, Nevada, Goldfield Hotel. Naturally, I did what any teenager with access to a car and friends would do, and checked out the locations in person. I started with Goldfield. I went to Goldfield in December of 2009 with 3 friends. It's a very small town, and it was covered in snow. First, we looked in the windows in front and didn't see anything, and the doors were locked, so we looked for another way in. We found a hole in the fence that surrounded the rest of the hotel and made our way to the doors on the side. Luckily, they were unlocked. We opened the door and just popped our heads in to listen. We could clearly hear someone walking around and things moving near us, but couldn't see anything. Then we heard what sounded like a man with a deep voice talking and getting closer. He sounded pissed off, and a rock hit the wall near the door from the inside, so we took off running towards the car. We stopped about halfway between the hotel and the fence to look back with flashlights. Didn't see anyone in the doorway or anything. But then we noticed a single set of child's footprints with clear toe marks had followed us through the snow. We booked it back to the car and left. The second one we visited was an old dilapidated mansion in Vegas. We arrived near midnight. It was closed off with those portable fences that people can rent. We were able to shift 2 of the fences enough that we could get through between them and walk to the rear of the house and started looking around. The place was really run down, broken windows and doors, etc. We found the back door completely open and went inside. As soon as we went inside, it was like we were all hit with a sense of dread, sadness, and fear. We looked around the interior for maybe 15 minutes, then decided to leave because the atmosphere was off. We'd never felt like this before, and we did stupid shit like this a lot. We had searched every room and inch of the property. We were 100% sure we were the only ones there. We got back to the car and were talking about the house and how we felt when we heard something moving near a gate on the west side of the house. We pointed our flashlights and watched the area for a few moments when something started running at us through this 2-foot-tall, grass-covered area we were watching. It was a very tall, dark figure. A shadow person. And it was beelining straight for us with the grass shifting after every stomp it made. We ran to the car and took off. We drove to a nearby Circle K to get drinks and regroup. That was definitely the most scared I've ever been. We had our flashlights directly on whatever this thing was, but it had no features, just a black mass outlined in the shape of a large human. The grass depressing and the noise as it ran towards us took out the possibility that we'd just imagined it. We all saw the same thing, and we still talk about it all these years later when we get together for beers. Fun times.
November night, 2016. Supermoon and meteor shower both happening at the same time. I decide to go to Papago Park after midnight, a hiking ground in Phoenix. It's nothing but mundane there past midnight. It's dark, but more peaceful than spooky. Watch the supermoon and meteor shower from a nice vantage point. Decide to start walking back home at 2 a.m. See some weird shit as I'm cutting a line through the parking lot. See that there's somebody on the floor. Think it's just some homeless person who made camp there. Decide to leave my spare unopened gallon of water for them so they have water when they wake up. See that the person is wrapped up in a blanket and placed on a rug with a red swirl on it, similar to the Dreamcast logo. The tables all have bones and shards of metal lined up on them. Completely freeze up in shock at the sight of this. Get out of Dodge, because if your instincts tell you you're in danger, you absolutely fucking are. 3 cars pull up, shining their headlights on me in a parking lot, which was supposed to be closed this time of night. I immediately turn around and decide to take the long way on a hiking trail that circles around the park. The cars all back out and leave after I turn around. I got home safe and sound, and nothing weird happened after I made it out of the park. But that was some weird shit. I doubt it was human sacrifice or anything, but I was too freaked out to stick around and find out. Who wouldn't have been? Hell, it's possible that those cars that pulled up had nothing to do with that too. But when your fight or flight system is going off like it never has before, it's difficult not to connect anything out of the ordinary to that creepy ass shit.
Nothing too crazy, but still scared the shit out of me as far as /x/shit goes. Be me, male 20, 2 years ago. Parents built a small outhouse on a mountain among trees, without power. Come down there regularly at night to chill out, listen to music loud, etc. Use candles and phone torches for light. It's always a nice calm vibe away from people. Cue me, probably around 2 o'clock at night, laying on the sofa looking outside the glass panel window into the dark trees, having deep thoughts. All of a sudden, have a very strange sequence of thoughts and feelings. And the air now had changed. Felt like the air was static, holding its breath, like I had caused a significant change in the metaphysical properties of my situation through those weird, novel thoughts I had, and as a result was now in contact with something. A different energetical influence. I don't know. As soon as I realized that something really strange that has never happened to me before happened, as soon as I made that thought, I felt, clear as day, a hand being placed on my right shoulder. At the time, it felt totally unmistakable. Exactly as if a flesh and blood person put their hand on my shoulder from behind while I was laying on the sofa. Jump up and turn around like, what the fuck? Contemplating how it may be possible and not so hard at all to interface with different layers of reality or interdimensional shit through experiencing certain novel states of mind.
I've got a wacky one for you lads. Sometime in 2015, up really late and couldn't fall asleep. So I decided to listen to an episode of the Mysterious Universe podcast. Comfy show with a great back catalog. I highly recommend. The topic of the show was synchronicities. I got about halfway through it and checked my clock. It was about 2:30 a.m., so I'm lying in bed and the audio is playing through my TV, which is in front of a window that has a big curtain over it. The hosts begin to discuss that a lot of synchronicities happen and are triggered around animals, particularly owls and deer. Right after they said that, for some reason I got up out of bed, moved my TV stand, and opened my curtain to look out into the field behind my house. I never do this, even during the day. Outside, standing under an apple tree, was a huge buck. And I kid you not, right above it perched in the tree was an owl, and they were both looking directly at me, 2 stories up. I freaked out and ran and jumped into my bed. It was a full moon too, which just added to the freakiness.
I saw a shadow person back when I was 11 or so. Watching Rurouni Kenshin at around 2 p.m. was in my parents' bedroom. Both of them were working, so I was alone. TV was a plasma. Don't remember the size, but pretty large. Kenshin ends. Turn off the TV and zone out for a minute or two. Something catches my eye on the TV. Everything is reflected as normal except for a person-shaped shadow laying on the bed. Get freaked out, but quickly dismiss my fear as I think it's just a trick of the light. Start searching for an explanation. Can't find one. Can't reconcile the fact that the shadow is just not visible, except for the reflection on the TV. Calmly stand up. Fucking beeline to the door. Stay outside for like half an hour. Too scared to go back in. Finally gather up the courage to go back inside and check the TV. Shadow is gone. I remember seeing some reports of similar things some years after the fact. Supposedly they come in 2 varieties, a plain silhouette and one with a flat, wide-brimmed hat. Think Caleb from Blood. The one I saw was the plain one. Never saw any again.
I have 2 brief ones, but I think they're related to something spooky in our family. Be my grandmother, from England, living in a small house in the country, someplace called Sandy. She's outside playing one day when she looks out into the field and sees a tall figure. It's walking briskly out in the open. It's white, but just barely translucent. Sunlight was making it glow. Has no arms at all, just some short legs and a very long torso, almost as tall as the trees. Grandma watches it until it turns to look at her. It instantly disappears. She told this story often when my mom was growing up, maintained to the day she died that it was 100% true. I heard her tell it a few times and she seemed genuine for whatever that's worth. Also, Grandma's making breakfast one day, turns around to get something. There's a black shadow of a man standing there. Grandma shrugs and keeps making breakfast. She used to see these shadow people all the time, apparently. She said they never seemed evil and they never scared her. She just got the sense that they wanted to watch whatever she was doing. Mom used to see them too. Anyway, here are mine. Reading on my laptop one night in the living room, sitting next to a big sofa, very dimly lit. All lights were off except the one in the kitchen. Hear movement like someone's adjusting themselves on the sofa. Look over and see the outline of a person sitting there. She disappears. I say she because it felt like a woman. Can't explain that, but whatever. Last one. Driving home after taking a walk out in this beautiful forest near my house. Small road, serene, suddenly hit by this powerful smell. Not bad, just really strong. Glance in my rear view. There's someone in my back seat, only see them for an instant because I hit the brakes and hop out of the car. There's nobody there. Normally, I'm not quick to panic, but whoever I saw looked fucked up. Like they were covered in oil.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more Greentext will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.